Keanu Reeves was walking alone through a silent studio when he saw something that stopped him cold. A janitor, secretly feeding her disabled son in the break room. She had nowhere else to go, hiding a heartbreaking secret. What Keanu did next wasn't just kind, it changed everything. But what was the unexpected gift that no one saw coming? Before we continue this incredible story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel, because tomorrow we have another inspiring story you won't want to miss. Keanu Reeves walked slowly through the sprawling soundstage of the movie studio, his footsteps echoing softly against the vast concrete floor. It was late at night, well past the usual working hours. The bright lights that had illuminated the set all day were now dimmed, leaving only the faint hum of machinery and distant footsteps somewhere far off in the shadows. The large, mostly empty lot stretched out around him like a quiet ocean of silence. The studio had been his second home for years, a place where his dreams had taken shape, where stories had come to life. But tonight, the familiar space felt colder. The usual energy was gone. Instead of feeling inspired, Keanu felt the weight of the day pressing down on him, heavier than usual. The conversations, the meetings, the endless negotiations, they all played back in his mind like a heavy film reel on loop. He paused for a moment, looking up at the towering sets, the half-built stages, the scattered props waiting to be packed away or brought to life again. These sets once buzzed with excitement, laughter, and creativity, but now, under the pale glow of the nightlights, they seemed empty, hollow. The dreams they represented felt fragile. Keanu's thoughts drifted to the challenges he'd been facing, both in his career and personal life. The pressure to deliver performances that mattered, to keep his projects meaningful, to balance the public's expectations with his own standards. At times, it felt like the weight of the world was on his shoulders, and no matter how much he gave, it wasn't enough. As he continued walking, the quietness settled around him like a thick fog. In the distance, a faint light flickered from one of the break rooms. It was the only sign of life in the vast silence of the studio. Keanu hesitated, feeling a strange pull toward that soft glow. The hum of equipment mingled with the faint creak of a door opening somewhere nearby. Keanu's footsteps slowed, his breath visible in the cool night air as he drew nearer to the soft yellow light spilling from the break room window. His mind was still heavy with the day's burdens, but his instincts urged him forward toward that quiet sanctuary. Through the window, the scene inside stopped him cold. The woman, dressed in a worn janitor's uniform, sat with a quiet dignity, her hands steady and gentle as she fed the boy beside her. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, but there was a tiredness in her eyes that told of countless sleepless nights and unyielding worry. Despite it all, she radiated strength and love, her every movement a silent promise to protect. The boy's wheelchair was modest, the cushions frayed and the wheels showing signs of wear. Yet his eyes gleamed with intelligence and resilience. His thin legs trembled slightly, but his gaze was fixed on his mother with absolute trust. The boy's lips moved softly, speaking in a language Keanu didn't understand. But the tenderness between them needed no translation. Keanu's heart clenched as he watched the mother carefully guide a spoonful of soup to the boy's mouth, her voice a soothing murmur of encouragement. When some of the soup dripped onto his chin, she delicately wiped it away with a napkin, smiling as if he were the most precious thing in the world. It was a scene so raw and intimate that Keanu felt as though he had stumbled into a sacred moment, one few were ever privileged to witness. For several minutes, Keanu remained motionless in the shadows outside the door, torn between the urge to step inside and the respect to remain unseen. The woman seemed unaware of his presence, wholly absorbed in the slow, painstaking task of caring for her son. Every spoonful, every gentle word, every patient touch was a testament to a love that transcended exhaustion, fear, and hardship. The studio's coldness and emptiness stood in stark contrast to the warmth glowing from that single room. Keanu felt an unexpected stirring within him, a profound recognition of sacrifice and resilience that no spotlight or camera could ever capture. He realized that while the world admired his performances, this mother was living the true drama, every day, without applause or recognition. His thoughts flickered to his own struggles, the pressures to perform, to meet expectations, to balance the public gaze with his private battles. But here was a woman who faced challenges far greater and far more intimate than any script. A woman who fought not for fame, but for survival, for her son's future. As Keanu lingered, the boy shifted slightly in his wheelchair. The mother reached over, gently holding his hand, and whispered words of encouragement. It was a small gesture, but the strength behind it filled the room with quiet power. Keanu knew deep in his bones that this night was about more than a chance encounter. It was the beginning of a story he hadn't expected to find in the shadowed corners of his own world. Keanu's mind raced as he continued to watch from the dimly lit corridor. The boy, fragile but fiercely determined, struggled to grasp the spoon, his small hands trembling. The mother's patience never faltered. She guided his fingers with steady hands, coaxing him through every difficulty. She pulled out a cracked tablet computer, its screen held together with tape, and gently helped him hold a stylus. Together, they practiced letters. The boy's shaky attempts met with warm applause and gentle smiles. Keanu's own heart ached watching this display of unwavering love. The boy's perseverance mirrored the countless struggles Keanu himself had faced, though on a very different stage. Yet, here in this modest break room, the stakes were as high as any blockbuster script. The fight for dignity, for hope, for a life worth living. The woman spoke softly, encouraging her son as he wrote crooked letters on the screen. When frustration crept into his eyes, she took his hands in hers, whispering, "We don't give up. We keep trying until we get it right." The tenderness in her voice seemed to fill the room, wrapping around them like a protective shield. Then came the moment that tightened Keanu's chest. The mother helped her son stand, supporting his fragile legs as he strapped on worn leg braces. With trembling steps, he took one shaky movement forward, then another. Each small victory was met with smiles and soft praise, the boy's face lighting up with joy. Keanu felt the weight of the world shift in that moment. This was no ordinary mother and child. This was a story of relentless hope, of love fighting against every obstacle. Cop to help. As the boy fell twice during their exercise, the mother was there instantly, lifting him up, never allowing him to stay down, never allowing despair to win. "You're going to be so strong," she whispered. "Stronger than you know." After their practice, she helped him back into the wheelchair and gave him a small toy car, which he clutched tightly, his eyes sparkling despite the exhaustion. Keanu took a slow breath, absorbing every detail. The mother wasn't just feeding her child. She was holding a world of dreams, fears, and fierce determination in those small moments. And then the truth hit him like a blow. This woman wasn't just visiting. She was working. The night janitor had brought her son to the studio because she had nowhere else to go. As Keanu watched her clean tables, sweep floors, and empty trash cans, all while keeping a watchful eye on her son, he realized this was a life most would never see. A life lived in shadows, hidden from the glamour and glitz of the film industry. The boy never complained, never cried out for home. He sat quietly, playing with his toy car, watching his mother with trust that transcended their hardship. Keanu's heart ached with a new understanding. This wasn't just a story of struggle. It was a story of courage, sacrifice, and unbreakable love. It was a story that would change everything. As Keanu Reeves continued his slow walk through the vast studio lot, the darkness seemed to press in around him. Most of the area was quiet now, only the faint hum of equipment and the occasional creak of settling structures breaking the silence. But then, in the distance, something caught his eye, a soft, yellow glow, shining steadily from a small room. It was the break room, one of the few places still illuminated in the otherwise dim environment. Curiosity nudged him forward. He felt a pull, an almost magnetic urge to slow down and see what was happening inside. Keanu's footsteps softened as he approached the window, his breath catching slightly as the warm light spilled out and painted the cold concrete outside with a gentle hue. Peering through the glass, Keanu's eyes adjusted to the scene within. There, sitting quietly at a small table, was a woman wearing a janitor's uniform. Her name tag, though simple and slightly worn, read Elena. Her dark hair was pulled back neatly, revealing a face marked by exhaustion but filled with a quiet strength. She sat close to a small boy who was nestled in a wheelchair beside her. The boy looked fragile, his legs thin and braced, his body small and seemingly delicate. Yet there was something unmistakable about his eyes, bright, alert, full of a quiet resilience that spoke volumes beyond his physical appearance. Elena's gentle hands moved with care, feeding him slowly, one bite at a time. She spoke softly, her voice barely above a whisper, as if trying not to disturb the peace they had created in that quiet space. Keanu felt an unfamiliar lump form in his throat. He had seen countless scenes on film portraying love, sacrifice, and struggle, but this moment was different. It wasn't staged or scripted. It was raw, real, and profoundly human. He found himself frozen outside that window, unable to look away from the unfolding scene. Every spoonful of soup Elena offered was given with an almost reverent tenderness. When some of the food slipped from the boy's lips, she gently wiped it away with a napkin, her eyes soft with care. The boy, despite his physical limitations, smiled at her, a small gesture that seemed to light up the entire room. Keanu's mind began to wander. Who were these two? What story lay behind this simple act of feeding? The janitor's uniform contrasted starkly with the scene's depth, reminding him that heroes are not always those in the spotlight. Sometimes, the most profound acts of love happen quietly, in places far from the cameras and applause. He sensed a fragile hope in the room, a story of resilience hidden beneath the surface. The weight of their situation was palpable. Elena's movements were deliberate, careful, shaped by exhaustion but fueled by determination. The boy's gaze never wavered from her face, trusting, dependent, but fiercely brave. In that quiet break room, surrounded by shadows and machines, Keanu saw a mother's fierce love battling against a world that offered so little mercy. The warmth of the light seemed to stand as a symbol, small but unwavering, in the vast darkness that enveloped them both. This was a story not yet told, but one Keanu felt compelled to witness. Keanu's breath slowed as he remained still by the window, absorbing the fragile beauty of the scene before him. The soft yellow light flickered faintly, casting gentle shadows across the worn floor and chipped tables. Outside, the world was cold and dark, but inside this small room, there was something sacred happening. A moment of tenderness that transcended the harsh realities waiting beyond these walls. The boy's hands, though weak and trembling, reached out for the spoon with determination. Elena steadied his grip, guiding the food carefully to his mouth. She whispered words of encouragement, soothing and kind, reminding him to take his time. The boy obeyed, opening his mouth slowly, trusting completely in her care. Keanu's heart tightened watching the boy's struggle. Every movement was a victory, every bite a triumph over adversity. It was clear this was no ordinary child and no ordinary mother. The bonds between them radiated love that had been tested and proven through hardship. Elena reached over to a cracked tablet resting on the table. The screen was taped together in places, but it was clear she used it often. She helped the boy hold a stylus, and together they practiced letters. The boy's hand shook as he tried to write, the letters crooked and imperfect. But Elena clapped softly and praised every effort. "Muy bien," she said, her voice warm. "You're learning so fast." Though Keanu didn't understand every word, he could feel the depth of pride and encouragement in her tone. It was a mother's unwavering belief in her child's potential, a force more powerful than any obstacle. The boy's face lit up with joy as he succeeded in writing a letter, and Elena's smile grew wider. She spoke softly about not giving up, about trying again even when things were hard. Keanu could see the boy absorbing these lessons, the way he leaned into her voice and the comfort of her presence. The room's atmosphere was charged with a quiet intensity, a struggle against odds that neither the boy nor Elena could escape. Keanu wondered how many nights they had spent like this, locked in their own world amid a vast factory, designed for dreams and spectacle, but blind to the battles fought within. Elena rose slowly and helped the boy stand. His legs wobbled under the weight of worn braces, but she steadied him with steady hands. Step by shaky step, he moved forward, each one a monumental achievement. "Dos pasos hoy," she whispered. "2 steps today, tomorrow 3. The boy's eyes sparkled with determination. "Mama, I will do it." Keanu was moved beyond words. This wasn't just a mother and son struggling. It was a story of hope, of relentless courage in the face of hardship. A story too often overlooked in the rush of life. As Elena guided the boy back into his wheelchair and handed him a small toy car, Keanu felt a surge of admiration and sorrow. Here was a family surviving on love and determination, unseen by the world around them. His own challenges suddenly seemed small. He realized that true strength often came wrapped in quiet sacrifice, not loud applause. Keanu stepped back from the window, his mind racing as he processed what he had witnessed. The janitor's uniform, the quiet break room, the fragile boy in the wheelchair. None of it matched the magnitude of the love and hope they carried. The woman, Elena, was not just cleaning floors. She was fighting for her son's future with every breath. He thought about the countless times he had walked through these halls, surrounded by lights and cameras, delivering performances to millions. Yet, in that moment, it was this hidden story that captured his soul. Keanu knew he couldn't just walk away. Something inside him stirred, a sense of purpose, a need to help rewrite this story. What had begun as a simple night walk through the studio was now a turning point. This was no longer about him, but about the unseen heroes who kept fighting in silence. He watched Elena as she finished tidying the small break room, her movements tired but careful. The boy played quietly with his toy car, his eyes occasionally meeting his mother's with trust and love. It was a fragile world they had built, a sanctuary within the shadows. As Keanu lingered, he felt a swell of emotion that refused to be ignored. He realized that sometimes the greatest stories are not on the big screen, but in small rooms, hidden away from the spotlight. These stories remind us of the power of love, resilience, and hope. The night air was cold, but the light from the break room remained steady and warm. Keanu took a deep breath, knowing his life, and theirs, was about to change forever. Rosa Martinez moved slowly and carefully, her eyes never leaving her son Miguel. The small break room was their quiet world, a place where the noise and chaos of the studio felt miles away. Miguel sat in his wheelchair, his tiny hands resting on the worn table. His legs were thin and fragile, his body seeming almost too delicate for the world around him. Yet his eyes were sharp, filled with curiosity and trust. Rosa held a spoonful of warm soup, lifting it gently to Miguel's lips. Her hands trembled just slightly, but her voice was calm and soothing. "Here comes the aeroplane, Miguel," she whispered softly. The boy smiled faintly, leaning forward to take the bite. Some of the soup dripped onto his chin, and Rosa wiped it away with a soft napkin, brushing a stray lock of hair back from his face. Her love was evident in every motion, every word. Rosa's day had been long and hard, but in this moment, her entire focus was on Miguel. She balanced being a mother and a worker, carrying the weight of both with quiet strength. Miguel's breathing was slow and steady, but Rosa could see the effort it took. His legs were weak, braces strapped tightly to support his movements. He couldn't walk on his own yet, and every small task required patience and care. Rosa had learned to be patient too. She had learned to celebrate every victory, no matter how small. "You're doing so well, mijito," Rosa said, using the nickname she reserved just for him. "Every day, a little stronger." Miguel's eyes flickered toward her, his trust shining clear in that gaze. He didn't need words to understand the love and hope his mother carried for him. Rosa pulled out a worn tablet from the side of the table. The screen was cracked and held together by tape in the corners, but it was their lifeline. On it, she had saved lessons and exercises designed to help Miguel's hands gain strength. She handed him a stylus, guiding his small fingers as they traced letters and shapes. The effort made Miguel's hand shake, but Rosa cheered every attempt, her smile full of encouragement. "Remember, we don't give up even when it's hard," Rosa said softly, her voice steady. "We keep trying until we get it right." Miguel nodded, his face serious as he concentrated. It was hard work, but he was learning, and Rosa was there every step, never letting frustration or exhaustion show. The bond between them was palpable. It was a quiet conversation of eyes and hands, of patience and resilience. Rosa's world was full of these moments, small, precious victories that meant everything. She wasn't just a janitor working a night shift. She was a mother fighting for her son's future, a woman carrying hope in the face of hardship. Rosa's uniform was simple, a blue shirt with a name tag that had seen better days, but it was a badge of honor in her eyes. It meant she could provide for Miguel, even if just barely. She cleaned the studio floors, wiped tables, and emptied trash cans, all while keeping a close watch on her son. Bringing Miguel to work was against company policy, but Rosa had no other choice. She had nowhere else to leave him. Every night was a balancing act. Rosa worked hard during her shifts, moving with a quiet grace born from necessity. Her body was tired, marked by years of exhaustion and worry, but her spirit remained unbroken. Miguel was her world, and she gave him all the love and care she could muster. During breaks, she would sit beside him, reading stories or helping him with simple exercises. The struggles of their life were ever present, but in these moments, there was warmth and peace. Rosa's patience was endless. When Miguel's hands trembled or his legs buckled, she was there to steady him, to encourage him to keep trying. Sometimes, when Miguel was frustrated or tired, Rosa would gently hold his hands and say, "We don't give up. We keep going." Her words were more than encouragement. They were a promise that no matter how hard things got, she would never let him fall. Miguel's disability limited his mobility, but it didn't dim his spirit. He looked up at his mother with admiration, trusting her completely. Rosa's love was a shield against the world's harshness, a force that carried them through every challenge. At times, Rosa's eyes would fill with tears she tried to hide. The weight of their struggles pressed on her, but she never let it break her resolve. Her love for Miguel was stronger than any fear or hardship. She dreamed of a day when he could walk without braces, when he could run and play with other children. Those dreams fueled her determination. Despite everything, Rosa never lost hope. She kept her son close, teaching him not just letters and numbers, but courage and resilience. Their bond was unbreakable, forged in the quiet battles fought in this small room. away from the world's eyes. Rosa carefully adjusted Miguel's leg braces, her fingers gentle but sure. The braces were worn and patched from years of use, but to Miguel, they were a lifeline. Tools that gave him a chance to stand and try walking. She made sure the straps were snug but not tight, her hands trembling ever so slightly with the weight of responsibility she carried every day. "Ready, mi amor?" Rosa asked softly, kneeling beside him. Miguel looked up at her with wide, determined eyes. "Si, mama," he whispered back, a small but fierce smile breaking across his face. Together they began the slow, careful process of walking. Rosa held Miguel's hands firmly, steadying him as he took one shaky step forward. His legs wobbled beneath him and he nearly lost balance more than once, but Rosa never faltered. She caught him gently each time he stumbled, whispering words of encouragement. "Muy bien, mijo. That's one step. You're doing so well." Miguel's face lit up with joy and pride. "Tomorrow, I'll take 2 steps," he promised. Rosa hugged him tightly, feeling tears prick her eyes. "I know you will, my brave boy," she said, pressing her cheek to his. For 10 minutes they practiced step by careful step. Miguel fell twice, but each time Rosa helped him back up. Her patience never wavered. Her love was relentless. She whispered that he was stronger than he knew, and that every effort brought him closer to his dreams. The quiet of the break room was filled with small sounds, the soft scrape of braces against the floor, Miguel's breathy exhales, and Rosa's soothing voice. Outside, the studio was dark and empty, but inside this small room, there was a fierce determination burning brighter than any spotlight. After their exercises, Rosa gently helped Miguel back into his wheelchair. She handed him a small toy car, a simple, battered thing he loved. As Miguel played quietly, Rosa began to organize her cleaning supplies for the rest of the night. Watching her son, Rosa's heart ached with the weight of their reality. She was a janitor working late shifts, barely making enough to survive. Miguel's medical needs drained every resource she had, yet despite the exhaustion and hardship, she refused to give up. Her love was a fortress that shielded them from despair. Rosa thought about the nights they spent in this break room, about the sacrifices she made so Miguel could have a chance. She worried about the future, but held tightly to hope. Every small step Miguel took was a victory against the odds, a testament to their strength and resilience. Her eyes filled with tears, she quickly blinked away. She would face another long night of work soon, but for now, in this quiet moment, it was just Rosa and Miguel. Mother and son bound by a love that nothing could break. This love was their greatest strength, the force that would carry them through whatever came next. Keanu stood quietly by the window, his gaze fixed on the small break room. The soft yellow light cast a gentle glow over the scene inside. A mother and her son huddled together, working on homework in the dim space. The worn tablet between them flickered with a faded screen, cracked edges held together by tape. Yet, despite its battered state, it was a lifeline for Miguel, a tool that connected him to a world beyond his physical limits. Rosa leaned over, patiently guiding Miguel's trembling fingers as they traced letters and numbers on the screen. Her voice was calm and encouraging, filled with a warmth that seemed to fill the entire room. "Muy bien, mijo. That's the letter A. Remember how we practiced yesterday?" she said softly. Miguel nodded, eyes shining with concentration as he repeated the movements. Every small victory brought a smile to Rosa's face. When Miguel struggled, frustration crept into his young features, and Rosa would gently take his hands, steadying them with quiet determination. "No te rindas, mijo. We don't give up. We keep trying until we get it right," she whispered, her words a tender promise of unwavering support. Keanu's heart clenched as he watched the pair. In that moment, he saw not just a janitor and her son, but a woman carrying the weight of countless unseen battles. Rosa's patience, her strength, It was a quiet defiance against a world that had not been kind to them. Images began to flicker through Keanu's mind, subtle clues woven into the scene. The worn uniform Rosa wore, the faded name tag pinned crookedly to her chest, the hurried movements that spoke of exhaustion masked by duty. A single mother juggling impossible demands, working late into the night to provide for a child with special needs. The sacrifices invisible to most, but deeply etched into every line of her face. Keanu felt a deep, growing respect for Rosa. She had never complained, never asked for help. Her love was fierce and silent, a force that moved mountains without drawing attention. The struggles she bore were hers alone, yet her resolve shone like a beacon in the darkness. As Miguel struggled to hold the stylus steady, Rosa's voice never faltered. She celebrated every crooked letter, every hesitant number, as though it were a triumph of the human spirit. The tender moments between them spoke volumes, more than words ever could, about resilience, hope, and an unbreakable bond. Keanu's gaze lingered on Rosa's worn hands, scarred from years of hard labor, yet gentle as they cradled Miguel's small ones. He understood then that love was not just a feeling, but a daily act of courage. An invisible struggle waged in quiet rooms, away from the spotlight, where true strength was forged. This was a story not often told, a story of sacrifice and determination that few saw but many needed to hear. Keanu felt honored to witness it, and his heart ached with a mix of sorrow and admiration for the woman who never gave up. He knew this moment was only the beginning, an opening into a world of hardship and hope, pain and perseverance. And as he watched, the weight of what Rosa carried settled heavily on his own shoulders. He vowed silently that he would not look away. The faint sound of Miguel's soft breathing mingled with the occasional tap on the tablet as Rosa continued her patient lessons. The boy's fingers trembled, struggling to grasp the stylus, yet he kept trying, fueled by his mother's quiet encouragement. Each time he faltered, Rosa's hands gently steadied his, and her eyes met his with unwavering reassurance. Keanu's thoughts drifted beyond the break room window as subtle glimpses of Rosa's life began to form around the edges of the scene. He noticed the heavy bags under her eyes, the slight slump of her shoulders that spoke of exhaustion deeper than the night's weariness. There was a weight she carried, one that she hid beneath her soft smile and steady hands. Flashbacks surfaced in Keanu's mind. Rosa waking before dawn to prepare for a long day, hurried breakfasts where she packed lunches with meticulous care, the clatter of cleaning supplies echoing through empty hallways while others slept. He saw her moving through crowded city streets, often walking when public transport or a car was out of reach, her determination never faltering despite the hardships. He imagined Rosa juggling multiple jobs, the janitor shift at the studio, perhaps extra cleaning gigs on weekends, maybe even late nights working on a computer somewhere in the shadows. She did everything to provide for Miguel, yet she never voiced her struggles, bearing them alone like a shield for her son. Keanu could sense the sacrifices Rosa made, the meals skipped, the broken promises to herself for rest or respite, the quiet moments where she fought back tears in empty rooms. The relentless pressure of making ends meet while nurturing a child with special needs was a daily battle few saw and even fewer understood. Despite it all, Rosa never let frustration consume her. Her love was steady and resolute, a constant source of strength for Miguel. She kept hope alive in his eyes when the world seemed indifferent, teaching him not just letters and numbers, but resilience and faith. Keanu's chest tightened as he realized the depth of what Rosa carried silently each day. She was more than a janitor. She was a mother, a teacher, a warrior against overwhelming odds. The hardships she faced were invisible to most, yet her courage was unmistakable. In this small break room, Rosa's determination transformed every struggle into a quiet act of love. Keanu felt a growing responsibility to not only witness her story, but to honor it. The invisible struggles she bore were a testament to the human spirit, a spirit he recognized in himself and in so many others fighting battles unseen. As the minutes passed, Keanu watched Rosa encourage Miguel to try again, her voice a steady melody of hope and belief. "You can do this, mijo. One more time," she said softly. Miguel's eyes sparkled with tentative confidence as he reached out once more, and this time, the letter he formed was clearer, more defined. The small victory lit up the room like a beacon. Keanu knew that this was more than a lesson in letters. It was a lesson in perseverance, a promise that no matter how hard life got, they would face it together. And in that moment, the quiet studio break room was filled with something powerful: love, hope, and the will to never give up. Keanu took a slow breath and stepped back from the window, knowing that this moment was a glimpse into a life defined by courage. Rosa's story was just beginning to unfold, and he was determined to see it through. As Keanu continued to observe, he noticed how Rosa's every movement was deliberate yet filled with tenderness. She didn't just help Miguel with his homework. She made sure to celebrate each small success, clapping her hand softly when he got a question right and whispering words of encouragement when he struggled. Her patience seemed endless, a steady anchor in a world that often felt overwhelming for both of them. Keanu's mind wandered deeper into the life Rosa led outside this break room. She was a woman who had weathered storms invisible to most, a single mother who faced each day carrying the weight of responsibility for a child whose needs went far beyond the ordinary. He imagined the endless appointments with doctors and therapists, the quiet worries about bills stacking higher than she could pay, and the nights spent comforting Miguel through pain and fear. Rosa's sacrifices were quiet and profound. She gave up personal dreams and comfort for the sake of her son's future. The simple act of feeding Miguel soup in this lonely break room was a window into a world where love and resilience intertwined. This was a love that demanded strength, endurance, and sacrifice without complaint. Keanu felt a surge of respect and empathy. He recognized the depth of Rosa's resolve, how she faced hardship not with despair, but with a determination that refused to yield. Every sleepless night, every exhausted step, every act of care was a testament to a mother's unwavering devotion. Miguel's trust in Rosa was complete. His bright eyes reflected the security he found in her presence. Though his body was fragile, his spirit was nurtured and fortified by the warmth of her care. Keanu realized this bond was the heart of their story, a love that transcended struggle and illuminated their darkest moments. Outside the glow of the break room, the studio was silent and cold. Yet inside, the quiet light held a warmth that no hardship could dim. Keanu understood that what he was witnessing was not just a fleeting scene, but a profound truth about human connection, how compassion and love could create hope in the most unlikely places. He took a step back from the window, the image of Rosa and Miguel etched deeply in his mind. This moment, simple yet powerful, was the beginning of something that would change lives, theirs and many others. Keanu knew that sometimes the most extraordinary stories begin in the humblest of places. As he walked away from the break room, a new sense of purpose settled within him. He was no longer just a silent observer. He was drawn into their world, compelled to understand, to help, to be part of their journey. The studio, once cold and empty, now held the promise of transformation, sparked by the quiet love of a mother and the courage of her son. After a long hour of watching Rosa carefully tend to Miguel and finish her cleaning duties, Keanu stayed in the shadows, silently following as she gathered her supplies. Her movements were purposeful but gentle, always keeping one eye on Miguel. The little boy's fragile body needed constant attention, and Rosa's devotion was unmistakable. Moved quietly through the vast, empty studio. The usual hum of activity had faded to silence, broken only by the faint echo of their footsteps. Rosa wheeled Miguel along the dimly lit corridor with care, her eyes scanning their surroundings, as if she wanted to make sure no one would see where they were going. Keanu felt his heart tighten. What kind of life was this? A woman who cleaned this vast studio by night, yet, instead of returning to a warm home, she led her son to a hidden place, a storage closet converted into a bedroom. The harsh reality sank deep. As they reached the small, unmarked door at the end of a hallway, Rosa pulled out a key card and swiped it carefully. The door opened to reveal a tiny space that had been transformed with remarkable care. There was a mattress laid on the floor, covered with clean sheets, a soft pillow, and a few worn but well-loved blankets. Keanu's breath caught as he took in the scene. It was a makeshift home, small and humble, but filled with signs of love. A small battery-powered lamp cast a warm glow on the walls, and a few books were neatly arranged on a shelf. There were some simple toys and a small box where Rosa kept letters she had written to Miguel. This was their sanctuary, a place hidden in plain sight inside the studio that symbolized both hardship and hope. Here, Rosa and Miguel lived, away from the world's eyes, protected by her fierce love and determination. Keanu felt overwhelmed by the weight of this secret life. He had never imagined such a hidden struggle unfolding right beneath his feet. The strength it must take to carry on every day like this was staggering, yet Rosa carried it with quiet dignity, refusing to let their circumstances define them. He stepped back into the shadows, watching as Rosa gently helped Miguel settle onto the mattress. Her hands moved with tenderness, smoothing the blankets and making sure he was comfortable. Despite the starkness of their surroundings, she created a space that felt safe and loving. As Rosa tucked Miguel in, she pulled a small, worn book from the shelf and began to read aloud softly. Miguel listened intently, his eyes heavy with sleep but bright with trust. The scene was intimate and tender, a mother's love shining brightly through the darkness. Keanu felt his resolve harden. He could no longer be a silent observer. This was a story that needed to be told, a story of sacrifice, love, and quiet courage. Rosa and Miguel deserved more than this hidden existence. They deserved a life full of hope, security, and opportunity. The night deepened, but the light in that small storage closet burned strong. Keanu turned away, carrying the image with him, a reminder of the human spirit's resilience and the power of compassion to change lives. Keanu remained hidden as Rosa carefully brushed Miguel's hair away from his forehead. Her face was soft but lined with exhaustion. She whispered words of comfort, as if trying to shield him from the harshness of their reality. The boy's small hand reached up to touch her cheek, and Rosa smiled through the fatigue. She pulled a worn notebook from a small box beside the bed. The edges were frayed, the pages filled with sketches and notes. It was clear she had been working quietly on something important. Rosa flipped through the pages slowly, her eyes scanning designs that showed a blend of creativity and practicality. Devices intended to make life easier for Miguel and children like him. Keanu's heart ached at the sight. Here was a woman who, despite her struggles, refused to give up hope. She was an inventor, a dreamer, and above all, a devoted mother, doing everything in her power to give her son a better future. He saw her take out an old, cracked tablet with a screen taped together. Rosa powered it on and gently helped Miguel hold a stylus. Together they practiced writing letters and numbers. Miguel's fingers trembled, but Rosa was patient, offering encouragement with every attempt. "Remember, mijo," Rosa said softly. "We don't give up. We keep trying until we get it right." Miguel nodded, his face glowing with pride as he made progress. It was a small victory, but one filled with immense significance. For Rosa, every moment spent helping her son was a battle won against the odds. Keanu's thoughts raced. How many others like Rosa were out there, hidden behind the scenes, fighting silent wars every day. The contrast between the glamorous world outside and this humble struggle inside the studio was stark. Rosa carefully set the tablet aside and reached for a pair of old leg braces. They looked worn but well cared for. Helping Miguel stand, she supported his weight as he took shaky, determined steps across the room. He stumbled, but didn't fall. Each movement was a testament to their perseverance. "Very good, mijo," Rosa said, her voice filled with pride. "Yesterday you took one step. Today, 2. Tomorrow, 3. Miguel's eyes sparkled with determination. "I know I will, Mama." Keanu watched, deeply moved. The raw love between mother and son, the quiet strength amid hardship. It was a scene he knew he would never forget. As Rosa helped Miguel back into his wheelchair, she glanced at the door, wary of being seen. She whispered a promise to keep him safe, no matter what. In that moment, Keanu understood the immense courage it took for them to carry on each day. He felt the weight of their story settle within him. This was more than just a moment of compassion. It was a call to action. A reminder that sometimes the greatest battles are fought quietly and unseen. Keanu turned away slowly, determined to find a way to help. He knew this was just the beginning of a journey that would change everything. For Rosa, for Miguel, and for himself. Keanu lingered near the doorway, watching as Rosa tidied their small space. She moved with a grace that belied the exhaustion visible in her eyes. Her hands, though rough from work, handled each object with careful tenderness. The few personal items scattered around, the worn books, the small toys, the faded photos, spoke of a life filled with hope, even in hardship. She sat beside Miguel once more and took out a thin book of letters. Rosa unfolded one carefully and began reading softly, as if sharing a secret with her son. The letters were full of dreams she held for Miguel's future. Dreams of a world where he could walk freely, learn without barriers, and live a life filled with possibility. Keanu's chest tightened. These letters were more than words on paper. They were promises. Promises made to a child whose every step was a struggle, whose every smile was a victory. Rosa's unwavering faith in those dreams was a beacon in the darkness of their reality. Miguel stirred, his tired eyes meeting his mother's. "Mama," he whispered, "are we safe here?" Rosa brushed his hair back and smiled, a mixture of reassurance and sadness in her gaze. "Yes, mijo. Mama will always keep you safe." The two settled into a quiet moment, the silence heavy but comforting. Keanu stepped back, unwilling to disturb their fragile peace. He knew this was a story that deserved more than silent observation. As he left the storage closet, the gravity of what he had witnessed settled in. Rosa and Miguel were hidden in plain sight, their struggles invisible to most, yet their love and resilience shone brightly. Keanu felt a growing resolve to act, not out of pity, but out of respect for the strength he had seen. This was not just a janitor and her son. This was a mother fighting tirelessly against a world that often turned its back on those who needed help the most. And Keanu Reeves knew that some moments change everything. Tonight was one of those moments. Keanu sat alone in his dressing room, the soft glow of the vanity lights casting a warm but lonely halo around him. The quiet hum of the studio outside felt distant, almost unreal, as if time had slowed down just for him. He stared into the mirror, but his reflection seemed a stranger. Tired eyes, a furrowed brow, and a weight pressing deep inside his chest. Images from the night played on repeat in his mind. Rosa carefully feeding Miguel, wiping soup from his chin with such tenderness it broke through Keanu's usual calm. The small boy's bright eyes, full of trust and hope, despite the challenges his fragile body faced. The cramped storage closet, transformed by a mother's love into a safe haven. It all lingered, haunting and vivid. Keanu's thoughts drifted to his own life, a life many would call privileged, filled with opportunities and comforts most could only dream of. But tonight, privilege felt hollow. It wasn't just about fame or fortune, it was about responsibility, about how sometimes the smallest act of kindness can ripple outward to change everything. He thought about the many times he had quietly helped others, unseen and unrecognized, the moments when he had chosen humility over spotlight. But now, he felt something different stirring, an urgency that would not be silenced, a calling to do more, to be more than just a witness. His fingers tapped lightly on the dressing table, a rhythm of restless thought. How many others like Rosa and Miguel were out there, hidden in plain sight? How many stories went unheard, struggles unnoticed? The weight of that question pressed heavy on his soul. Keanu closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. The night stretched on, but sleep was elusive. Instead, a fierce determination took root. To find a way to help, not from a place of pity, but from respect and genuine understanding. To honor the strength he had seen, to give Rosa and Miguel a chance they deserved. He opened his eyes and looked again into the mirror. This time the reflection was clearer. Not just the weary actor, but a man moved to act, to be a force for change. The quiet witness had become a participant, ready to step forward. The hours slipped by as Keanu sat in thoughtful silence. Outside, the world moved on. Cars passing, the faint murmur of late-night workers, the distant buzz of city life. But inside, everything had narrowed down to one truth: the power each person holds to make a difference. There was not one light and presence on it, just engines. His mind wandered to the moments earlier that evening when he had observed Rosa's silent fight, the juggling of work and motherhood, the hidden exhaustion behind her steady smile, the sacrifices she made every day, sacrifices invisible to most but etched deeply in the lines of her face. Keanu thought about his own journey, the highs and lows, the personal losses and victories. He understood pain, but also the healing power of compassion. That power was what had drawn him to acting in the first place, the ability to tell stories that connect, that awaken empathy. Tonight, that empathy had shifted from story to reality. Rosa and Miguel were no longer just people he saw from afar. They were a mirror reflecting a part of humanity often overlooked. They were a call to action, a reminder that behind every role he played, behind every public moment, there was a responsibility. The quiet urgency inside him grew stronger. This wasn't about charity or fame. It was about justice, about lifting those who had been left behind, about using whatever influence he had to create real change, starting with the family he had met tonight. He reached for his phone, fingers hovering over the screen. He wanted to learn more, to understand how he could help. But more than that, he wanted to listen. To Rosa's story, Miguel's needs, the barriers they faced. Because change, he knew, begins with understanding. Keanu felt a rare vulnerability settle over him. This wasn't a scripted moment or a character he could slip into. This was real, raw, human, and it demanded his full attention. He leaned back in his chair, letting the weight of the night settle around him. Tomorrow, he would begin the work. Tonight, he would hold on to the images that refused to fade. The light in a quiet break room, a mother's love, a child's hope. As the first soft light of dawn crept through the narrow window of his dressing room, Keanu remained still, his mind unable to fully let go of the night's images. The quiet break room, where Rosa had tended to Miguel, the small makeshift bedroom hidden away in a storage closet. These moments were no longer just fleeting scenes. They had become deeply etched in his heart, a call that would not fade. He thought about the fragility in Miguel's eyes, the trusting way he leaned on his mother despite all the hardships they faced, and Rosa's quiet strength, how she bore the weight of their world with patience and unwavering love. It struck Keanu how often such courage goes unnoticed, invisible to the outside world. His own life felt suddenly different. The fame, the roles, the bright lights, all seemed distant compared to this raw, unfiltered reality. Tonight had pulled back the curtain on a story far more profound than any script he'd read. A story about survival, sacrifice, and the enduring power of love. Keanu knew that waking up with such clarity was rare. The weight of privilege was no longer a vague notion, but a personal challenge to use his influence wisely, to turn compassion into action, to not just witness these invisible struggles, but to stand alongside those enduring them. He felt the stirrings of a resolve hardening inside him, a determination to help Rosa and Miguel find a life beyond hiding, to shine a light on the countless others living unseen too. This was a mission that demanded humility, respect, and real commitment. Though the path ahead was uncertain and likely fraught with difficulty, Keanu felt ready. The vulnerability and urgency he carried were no longer burdens, but fuel. Fuel to push beyond comfort, to create change that mattered. He rose slowly from his chair, taking a deep breath as the day began. This night had transformed him. He was no longer a mere observer in the shadows. He was a man awakened, ready to step into the light and make a difference. The journey was just beginning, for Keanu, for Rosa, and for Miguel. And with every step forward, hope would grow stronger. The morning light filtered softly through the large windows of the studio office. But inside Keanu's mind, the events of the previous night still played on a relentless loop. There was an urgency now, a need to understand more about Rosa and Miguel beyond the brief glimpse he had caught. He had to know what they were facing, to figure out how to help. Keanu began quietly, reaching out to the studio's human resources department. He was careful, mindful not to draw attention to his interest in Rosa's life. He simply requested general information about one of the night shift employees, mentioning nothing of the boy or the break room. The HR staff was courteous, though someone of Keanu's stature would take such a personal interest in a janitor. Still, as they pulled up Rosa's file, a picture began to form. She had been with the studio for almost a year, working primarily the night shifts. Her attendance was impeccable, despite the obvious hardships she must be juggling. Her work reviews praised her dedication and quiet diligence. But what stood out to Keanu was the address listed on her paperwork. A small, cramped apartment in a part of town known for its struggles. The rent there was low, but the living conditions were far from ideal. He asked more questions, carefully steering the conversation toward any notes about absences or emergency contacts. The HR representative hesitated before mentioning that Rosa had been contacted about missing a shift recently due to a family emergency. No further details were given, but Keanu sensed there was more to the story. From there, Keanu moved to speak with the studio security team. The night guard who had worked alongside Rosa for years was hesitant at first, but eventually opened up. He described Rosa as a woman who worked harder than anyone else he'd seen, holding down multiple jobs to keep her and Miguel afloat. She was fiercely protective of her son, often bringing him to work because she had no one else to care for him. The guard spoke about how he'd noticed Rosa pushing through exhaustion and illness, her body betraying the toll of stress and constant work. He had seen her drop to a chair behind the break room door just to catch her breath before getting back up again. The dedication was remarkable, but it was also heartbreaking. Keanu's heart tightened hearing these details. He imagined Rosa's long nights, the balance she maintained between work and motherhood, and the crushing weight of financial worries looming over her every move. It wasn't just about a janitor doing her job. It was about a mother fighting to give her son the life he deserved, no matter the cost. His mind circled back to Miguel, the boy's bright eyes, the fragile yet determined steps he had taken with Rosa's steady hands guiding him. Those moments were proof of a love so powerful it could move mountains. And yet, there was a looming threat: medical bills that could break them, a home that was more of a dream than reality, and a future that seemed uncertain. Keanu was no stranger to hardship or perseverance, but this was different. This was real life. Not a script or character, but flesh and blood people he could help. The weight of that realization settled heavily on his shoulders as the morning grew older and the studio buzzed with its usual activity. He knew the path ahead would be complicated, but for the first time in a long while, Keanu Reeves felt a clear purpose beyond the spotlight. This was a mission that demanded compassion and action, and he was ready to face it head-on. Keanu left the security office with a quiet resolve. He paced through the studio halls, his thoughts heavy with the pieces of Rosa's story. Each fact he uncovered deepened his understanding of her struggle, but also sparked a growing determination to do something meaningful. He knew that Rosa's situation was not unique. Too many hardworking people lived on the edge, carrying burdens invisible to the rest of the world. Yet for Rosa and Miguel, the stakes were intensely personal. Miguel's medical bills especially were an urgent shadow over their lives. The boy's condition required constant care and expensive treatments, costs that Rosa had tried to cover by working every hour she could, but it wasn't enough. Keanu recalled the flicker of hope in Rosa's eyes when she spoke softly to Miguel, encouraging him despite the challenges. That resilience was the kind of strength the world rarely saw. It made him question how often society overlooks the quiet heroes, the ones who do everything right, but still struggle because the system fails them. He considered reaching out to some of the contacts he had in the medical community, people who might help reduce Miguel's bills or find additional support. Yet he also understood that such help needed to be discreet, respectful of Rosa's privacy and dignity. She didn't ask for pity, only a chance to keep fighting. Keanu's next step was to quietly speak with the payroll department, hoping to learn if Rosa had access to any employee assistance programs or benefits. He wanted to find every possible avenue to ease her burden. The payroll officer confirmed Rosa was enrolled in some basic benefits, but nothing that could cover the extent of Miguel's needs. This knowledge was frustrating but not surprising. Many companies offered minimal support to lower-wage employees. The gap between what Rosa needed and what was available was vast. It underscored the harsh reality of inequality, a gap that no one should have to cross alone. Keanu thought about the life he lived compared to Rosa's. His public image was often one of success and calm, but he was not immune to moments of doubt or helplessness. Tonight, however, he felt a surge of clarity. He wanted to use whatever influence and resources he had to make a difference for Rosa and Miguel, not as a publicity gesture, but as a genuine act of compassion. He also realized that helping them would mean more than just money. Rosa needed support in ways that couldn't be bought: security, understanding, and respect. Miguel needed hope, not just for survival, but for a future where he could thrive. Keanu knew that navigating this path would be delicate. He couldn't force help on Rosa or expose her hardships to the world. Trust had to be earned. So he began to sketch a plan to approach Rosa gently, to offer assistance without overwhelming her. As the morning gave way to afternoon, Keanu's research continued quietly. He talked to a few colleagues who had interacted with Rosa, learning about her character and strength. Everyone spoke of her with respect and kindness, which only deepened Keanu's admiration. He made notes about community organizations and charities that specialized in medical assistance and housing support. Finding a way to connect Rosa and Miguel with these resources could be life-changing. By the time Keanu returned to his dressing room, his mind was buzzing with possibilities. The mission was no longer abstract. It was real and urgent. Rosa and Miguel's fight had become his fight. He felt the familiar weight of responsibility, but also a rare excitement. Sometimes the most profound stories weren't on the big screen. They were happening right in front of us, in moments like these. That evening, Keanu sat in his quiet dressing room again, reflecting on everything he had learned. The images of Rosa gently feeding Miguel, the cramped storage space they called home, and the endless challenges they faced played over in his mind. It was a stark contrast to his own life, filled with comfort and stability, yet his heart was drawn to their story with a new urgency. He knew the next step was to reach out carefully. Rosa's trust would be essential, and any gesture needed to come without judgment or conditions. He considered how he might approach her, quietly, respectfully, and with genuine support. Keanu also thought about the studio itself. How could it do more for employees like Rosa, who were clearly struggling but invisible? Was there a way to change policies, to create better safety nets? The idea of transforming a large organization into a place of real compassion inspired him. It was a challenge, but one he was willing to take on. He began drafting ideas for a discreet assistance program, something that could provide emergency support without stigma. Medical bills, housing help, childcare, all critical needs for people like Rosa. The thought of creating a lasting impact fueled his determination. Meanwhile, Keanu resolved to connect with local nonprofits and charities that specialized in helping families with disabled children. By building bridges between the studio and these organizations, he could help Rosa access resources she might not have known existed. As the night deepened, he reviewed everything again. The pieces were slowly coming together, and the path ahead was clear. This was no longer just about Rosa and Miguel. It was about using his position to shine a light on the unseen struggles so many faced every day. Keanu understood that this journey would test his patience and humility. It wouldn't be easy or fast, but it was necessary. For Rosa, for Miguel, and for all the quiet heroes living in the shadows. He looked out the window into the stillness of the studio lot. The same place that had once felt cold and empty now held the promise of something profound, a chance to turn compassion into action. Tomorrow, he would begin. The morning light filtered softly through the blinds of Keanu's office as he sat quietly at his desk. His thoughts were steady, focused on the weight of responsibility he felt. The images of Rosa and Miguel, fragile and determined, stayed with him. He knew action was necessary, but it had to be done right. Without hesitation, Keanu reached for his phone and dialed his trusted assistant, Maria. Maria had worked with him for years, a calm and thoughtful presence who understood the balance between discretion and compassion. He spoke in a low voice, careful not to rush. "Maria," he began, "there's something important I need your help with. It's delicate, and it must be handled with the utmost respect. I want us to assist one of the studio's janitors, Rosa. She and her son Miguel are going through an unimaginable struggle. I want to offer help, but it has to be done, so she never feels like she's being given charity." Maria listened attentively, sensing the depth of Keanu's concern. "Of course, Keanu, I understand. We'll approach this with care and sensitivity. What do you need from me?" Keanu explained that he wanted to put together a small, private team that could offer practical support. "Not just money," he said, "but real empowerment. We need to help her find stable housing, medical support for Miguel, and ways to ease her workload. Most importantly, she must feel respected and valued." Maria nodded. "I'll start making discreet inquiries and look into resources. We'll connect with people who can provide ongoing support without making it obvious. No headlines, no fanfare, just quiet help." "Exactly," Keanu replied. "And I want legal counsel involved too, to ensure everything is above board and protects her privacy." Within the hour, Keanu reached out to his legal advisor, David, who had been instrumental in handling sensitive matters for him in the past. David understood immediately that this was more than a standard legal issue. It was about protecting a vulnerable family while creating real change. Keanu explained the situation with measured words, emphasizing discretion and dignity. "David, we need to make sure any assistance we provide doesn't expose Rosa or Miguel to unwanted attention or bureaucracy. I want her to feel empowered, not pitied. David assured him that they would craft agreements and support mechanisms carefully. We'll protect her confidentiality and make sure the support doesn't interfere with her work or life. I'll prepare everything with that goal in mind. As the conversations continued throughout the day, Keanu's quiet leadership shone through. He was not interested in public recognition or superficial gestures. His focus was on meaningful, lasting support that respected Rosa's strength and perseverance. He communicated clearly with Maria and David, insisting that empathy be at the center of every decision. This isn't about charity, he reminded them. It's about standing with someone who's already a hero. By evening, plans were taking shape. A discreet fund would be set up to cover Miguel's medical expenses and housing needs. Connections with non-profit organizations would be established to provide counseling and educational resources, and Rosa would be offered flexible work accommodations so she could spend more time caring for Miguel without fear of losing her job. Keanu's heart felt lighter, but he knew this was just the beginning. The real work, building trust with Rosa, walking beside her, would take time, but his resolve was firm. This was a call to action he could not ignore. He glanced at a photo on his desk, a quiet reminder of why he cared so deeply. It was a simple image of his own family, and it made him think of the universal ties that bind us all: love, sacrifice, and hope. As the office lights dimmed and the city outside grew still, Keanu sat back in his chair, ready to face whatever came next with humility and purpose. The next morning, Keanu met quietly with Maria and David in a small conference room. Their discussion was precise but compassionate, focused on how to proceed without overwhelming Rosa or drawing attention. Maria shared what she had learned discreetly from studio staff. Rosa was known for her quiet diligence, working long hours and rarely taking breaks. She was respected but remained largely invisible, her personal struggles a secret to most. Rosa's story is heartbreaking, Maria said softly. She's juggling 2 jobs just to keep food on the table and pay the mounting medical bills for Miguel. And yet, she never complains or asks for help. David nodded thoughtfully. We have to create a support system that works on her terms. No pressure, no demands. Just steady, reliable help that she can accept when she's ready. Keanu agreed. I want us to respect her boundaries. If she wants to keep this private, that's her choice. Our job is to offer a lifeline, not to pull her into the spotlight. They discussed practical next steps. First, they would secure temporary housing nearby, ensuring Rosa and Miguel had a safe place to stay that didn't disrupt her work schedule. They would also connect her with medical professionals who could manage Miguel's care more effectively, reducing her constant stress. Maria suggested involving trusted nonprofit partners who specialized in helping families like Rosa's. They have experience with confidentiality and can provide emotional as well as financial support, she explained. Keanu listened intently, impressed by the depth of knowledge and sensitivity the team brought. I want to make sure Miguel's needs come first. His health and happiness are the priority, David added. We'll draft agreements that give Rosa full control over how the help is used. This isn't charity, it's empowerment. As the meeting wrapped up, Keanu felt a growing sense of hope. The small steps they planned could transform a life. Maybe even more. But he also knew this path would require patience. Rosa's pride and strength were immense, and any misstep could push her away. Later that afternoon, Keanu walked through the studio halls, his mind still with Rosa and Miguel. He considered how many people like Rosa worked quietly behind the scenes, invisible to the world, but essential to everything around them. He vowed to do more than just help Rosa. He wanted to shine a light on the unseen struggles that many endured alone. This was his moment to listen, to learn, and to lead with humility. As the day ended, Keanu prepared to reach out to Rosa personally, but with the utmost care. He wanted her to know she was not alone, that someone believed in her, quietly, without judgment or pity. The call to action was clear. That evening, Keanu sat in his private office, the city lights flickering through the window. His phone rested on the desk, ready to dial Rosa's number when the moment felt right. He thought carefully about what to say, wanting every word to convey respect and genuine concern. He rehearsed quietly. "Rosa, I've been thinking about you and Miguel. I want to help, but only in a way that feels right for you. No pressure, no strings, just support." He knew trust would be fragile. Rosa's life had been shaped by hardship and self-reliance. Accepting help was not easy, especially from someone she barely knew. Keanu reminded himself that patience was key. This wasn't about heroics or grand gestures. It was about being present, consistent, and kind. Finally, he made the call. Rosa answered after a few rings, her voice cautious but warm. "Rosa, it's Keanu," he began softly. "I've seen how hard you work and the love you have for Miguel. I want to help. If you're willing, there are ways we can support you without making things complicated." There was silence on the other end, then a quiet breath. "Thank you," Rosa replied, voice trembling slightly. I don't know what to say." "Just take your time," Keanu assured her. "I'm here whenever you're ready. No rush." After the call ended, Keanu felt a mix of relief and resolve. The first door was open, but many more steps lay ahead. He contacted his legal counsel to begin drafting discreet agreements and lined up trusted resources to assist Rosa. He insisted that privacy be the top priority. Over the following days, Keanu coordinated quietly with his team, ensuring every move was thoughtful and respectful. He checked in on Rosa without overwhelming her, offering encouragement and space. At the studio, he watched from afar as Rosa continued her work with quiet determination. He admired her strength anew. One afternoon, as he passed the break room, Rosa glanced up and smiled, briefly, a small but meaningful connection. Keanu knew this was just the beginning of a journey toward hope and healing for Rosa and Miguel. And for him, a reminder of the power of compassion lived out quietly, away from the spotlight. Rosa sat by Miguel's hospital bed, her hands trembling slightly as she held his small, fragile fingers. The sterile smell of the room felt overwhelming, but she forced herself to focus. Miguel's surgery was scheduled for the next day, and the weight of what lay ahead pressed heavily on her shoulders. She had spent the past weeks juggling an impossible schedule. By day, she worked long hours cleaning the studios, her body aching but her spirit refusing to break. At night, she stayed awake with Miguel, making sure he was comfortable and studying any new care instructions the doctors provided. Her mind was a whirlwind of worries, not just about Miguel's health, but about the mounting bills she could barely keep up with. Every penny was stretched thin, and the thought of surgery costs left her feeling desperate. Yet, Rosa didn't give up. She had borrowed books from the public library, textbooks on basic engineering and anatomy, hoping to understand more about Miguel's condition and how she could support his recovery. Online videos became her late-night teachers. Even though exhaustion clawed at her, she pushed through, determined to learn anything that could help. In the quiet moments, she juggled flashbacks of her own childhood, a life of uncertainty and struggle that fueled her fierce determination to give Miguel a better chance. She wiped a tear from her cheek, refusing to let it fall. Miguel looked up at her with trusting eyes, unaware of the storm swirling around them both. Meanwhile, Keanu's concern deepened. Though he usually kept his private life guarded, this situation pulled at something more personal within him. He understood what it meant to face hardship quietly, to wrestle with problems beneath the surface. The contrast between Rosa's silent struggle and the bright spotlight he was accustomed to only made her situation more poignant. He had his assistant gather more detailed information about Rosa's work schedule, her living arrangements, and Miguel's medical history. The truth was staggering. Rosa was balancing 3 part-time jobs, including cleaning on the studio lot, a night shift at a local diner, and occasional babysitting gigs. Yet none of these jobs provided enough income or health benefits to cover Miguel's upcoming surgery. Rosa's situation was precarious. Without a permanent home, she relied on the storage closet at the studio and a few borrowed blankets to shield them from cold nights. There was no room for error. If she missed a shift, it could mean lost wages, which would directly affect Miguel's medical care. Keanu reached out privately to trusted contacts in the healthcare system. He sought doctors who could evaluate Miguel's case without pressure or bureaucracy, looking for specialists willing to offer pro bono consultation. He also explored charitable foundations that might assist with medical expenses and ongoing care. In conversations with Rosa's colleagues in HR and security, Keanu learned about the respect she commanded despite her invisibility. Many admired her unwavering dedication, but none had grasped the full extent of her hardships. The studio's environment was competitive and busy. No one noticed the makeshift home Rosa maintained in the shadows. Keanu's mind circled around the question, how could he help without stripping Rosa of her dignity? He wanted to be careful, ensuring she felt empowered rather than pitied. The idea of charity made him uneasy. He believed true compassion was about partnership, not handouts. His plans began to form quietly. A network of support, medical advocacy, financial assistance, and emotional encouragement. Rosa needed a champion who could listen and act discreetly. This was not about fame or public recognition. It was a private mission, born from witnessing real human courage. Back at the studio, Rosa's daily routine was a complex choreography of love and sacrifice. After her last shift, she wheeled Miguel through the dim corridors, navigating around empty carts and scattered equipment with practiced care. The cold air brushed her face, but the warmth of Miguel's small hand in hers steadied her. Their makeshift bedroom was a world apart from the glamour and grandeur of the studio outside. The storage closet was cramped, but meticulously organized. Soft blankets lined one corner, and faded posters of superheroes adorned the walls, gifts from friendly coworkers. On a small, worn table sat an array of open books and a battered tablet. Rosa had spent countless nights poring over pages about neurology, physical therapy, and pediatric care. Every scrap of knowledge was a lifeline. She was teaching herself how to better support Miguel's recovery, how to spot warning signs, and how to advocate during hospital visits. Exhaustion tugged at her body, but her mind was restless. She whispered softly to Miguel, recounting stories of heroes and hope, weaving courage into the quiet hours. The pending surgery weighed heavily on her. Questions haunted her. Would Miguel wake up? Would the surgery ease his pain? How long would recovery take? The uncertainty was a constant companion. Despite the shadows surrounding their lives, Rosa found small moments of grace. The kindness of a janitor colleague who brought extra food, the gentle smiles from security guards who saw them but never asked questions, the fleeting friendships forged in whispered conversations during breaks. Rosa's love was a steady flame in the dark, a testament to a mother's unyielding will. Keanu's knowledge of these moments grew with each passing day. The depth of her courage inspired him beyond words. He understood now that Rosa and Miguel's story was not one of victimhood, but of fierce survival. And it was a story that demanded action, not just from him, but from everyone who could make a difference. Keanu approached the studio quietly that afternoon, his mind steady but his heart full. He had thought long about this moment, the moment he would meet Rosa and Miguel face to face, to offer more than sympathy or charity. He wanted it to be genuine, grounded, a chance to create something meaningful together. He found Rosa finishing her shift, her movements tired but precise as she tidied the break room. Miguel was nearby, his eyes bright despite the day's challenges. Keanu's presence did not startle them. He greeted Rosa with a soft, respectful nod, introducing himself simply. There was no grandeur, no show of celebrity, just a man who had witnessed a story of quiet courage and wanted to extend a hand. Rosa's eyes widened slightly, but her voice remained steady as she replied. Miguel looked up curiously, sensing something different in the air. Keanu spoke gently about what he had learned, the long nights, the sacrifices, the growing skills Rosa was building to help her son. He didn't just offer financial aid. Instead, he shared a vision of collaboration, a chance for Rosa to work alongside engineers and innovators on projects that could transform the lives of people with disabilities. He described how her lived experience, combined with her new knowledge, made her uniquely qualified to contribute ideas that mattered. This was an invitation to become a valued partner, not a recipient of charity. Rosa listened intently. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen, not just as a struggling mother, but as someone with potential and power. Miguel's face lit up with a small smile, sensing hope. Keanu's humility and sincerity created a space where walls fell away. They talked quietly about next steps, the challenges ahead, and the possibility of creating assistive technology that could improve daily life for Miguel and countless others. The gift was not just in money or resources, it was in trust, respect, and belief. Days turned into weeks as Rosa settled into her new role with the team. The initial nervousness she felt gave way to quiet determination. She was no longer just the janitor who cleaned floors and cared for her son in secret. She was now a vital voice in a circle of innovators working to change lives. Every meeting she attended deepened her understanding of the possibilities that technology could bring to Miguel and children like him. Keanu made sure the environment was supportive and welcoming. He personally introduced Rosa to engineers and therapists, emphasizing the importance of her experience. Rosa was surprised by their genuine interest and respect. They listened carefully, not just to technical descriptions, but to stories of daily struggles and small victories that shaped the design challenges. At times, Rosa felt overwhelmed by the jargon and concepts, but the team encouraged questions and provided patient explanations. They understood that her insights, born from lived experience, were the key to creating meaningful solutions. Rosa's confidence blossomed as she realized that her knowledge was as valuable as any technical skill. Miguel's condition was a constant reference point. His needs, limitations, and responses guided every decision. Rosa shared moments of joy when Miguel mastered a new device or achieved a small but important milestone, like holding a spoon or turning a page on his own. The team celebrated these moments as if they were their own. Keanu watched quietly, proud but always humble. His role was to create opportunities and clear obstacles, not to take center stage. Rosa's empowerment was his true goal. This work brought new purpose to Rosa's life. She felt a shift inside, a hope she hadn't known in years. The burden of invisibility that had weighed her down was lifting, replaced by a sense of belonging and contribution. Even Miguel seemed to sense the change. His smiles were brighter, his eyes more curious. Rosa's love and resilience were meeting with new possibilities, and together they faced the future with cautious optimism. The studio's atmosphere transformed as this quiet revolution unfolded. Rosa's workspace was filled with prototypes, sketches, and notes. Her hands, once only familiar with mops and cleaning cloths, now held tools and small parts. She learned quickly, driven by the desire to make things better for Miguel. She spent hours testing devices, tweaking designs, and providing feedback. Sometimes frustrated by technical limits, she never lost sight of the goal. The team valued her honest critique and trusted her judgment. Rosa was becoming not just a user, but a co-creator. Miguel's participation, although limited by his condition, was vital. His reactions helped the team understand comfort, usability, and safety. Rosa's reports after each session were detailed and heartfelt, revealing the nuances only a mother could know. Keanu's support was constant but unobtrusive. He ensured Rosa had the time and resources she needed and that the project stayed on course. His humility was apparent. He sought no spotlight, only results that would truly help. As prototypes improved, Rosa's dreams grew bolder. She envisioned a future where Miguel could move more freely, engage more fully, and live with greater independence. This vision fueled late nights and early mornings, filled with study and experimentation. The challenges were many: financial strains, health worries, and the weight of daily survival. But the partnership gave Rosa strength. She was no longer isolated in her struggle. She had allies who believed in her and Miguel. Keanu's simple offer had become a lifeline. It was more than a gift. It was a new beginning, one built on respect, empathy, and shared purpose. Rosa stood in the small break room, holding a thick envelope that contained her enrollment papers. She had spent the last few days in quiet contemplation, wrestling with a mix of emotions. The idea of returning to school, especially engineering courses, felt both daunting and exhilarating. For so long, her life had been consumed by survival, juggling jobs, caring for Miguel, and hiding their secret home. Now, an opportunity had appeared that promised a different future. But stepping into it meant embracing uncertainty. Keanu had been patient throughout. He never rushed her or pressured her to accept anything before she was ready. His calm support and quiet respect made all the difference. When he first suggested helping her enroll, he framed it as a partnership, emphasizing her dignity and dreams. "You already have the strength and wisdom," he had said softly. "This is just a new tool." The promise of full medical coverage for Miguel lifted a heavy weight off Rosa's shoulders. She no longer had to choose between his health and basic necessities. The relief was overwhelming, but Rosa was careful not to let herself hope too much too soon. She had learned that life rarely unfolded as planned. Despite the hesitation, a spark of hope grew inside her. She imagined herself in classrooms, learning new concepts, surrounded by people who believed in possibilities. For Miguel, she saw a future where his needs were met not just by love, but by technology designed with care. Her son would not be held back by circumstances beyond their control. The studio became a place of quiet transformation. Rosa attended her classes during the day when her janitorial shifts were lighter. Keanu arranged her schedule to accommodate this change, always mindful of the delicate balance she maintained between work, school, and motherhood. His respect for her boundaries deepened Rosa's trust. Miguel, meanwhile, found a new role as a vital member of the team. His reactions to prototypes and devices helped engineers understand real-world needs. His presence reminded everyone why the work mattered. Rosa watched with pride as her son's input shaped projects that could one day change lives beyond their own. This new path was not without challenges. Rosa faced long nights filled with homework, hospital visits, and the constant worry of making ends meet. But with Keanu's discreet support and the growing community around her, she felt less alone. Each step forward was a testament to resilience and quiet courage. As Rosa navigated her courses, she discovered a world of knowledge, both exciting and overwhelming. Engineering was complex, filled with technical jargon and concepts she had never encountered. At times, frustration threatened to overwhelm her, but she remembered Keanu's words about strength and wisdom. She took it one lesson at a time, leaning on her classmates and instructors when needed. Her instructors were supportive, inspired by Rosa's determination and unique perspective. They recognized that her lived experience added invaluable context to their theoretical lessons. Rosa's questions were sharp and thoughtful, reflecting the real-world challenges she faced with Miguel. Balancing school and work tested Rosa's limits. She rose before dawn to prepare Miguel for the day, attended classes, and then returned to the studio for cleaning shifts. Her breaks were spent reviewing notes or helping Miguel with exercises prescribed by therapists. Sleep became a precious commodity. Despite the exhaustion, Rosa's resolve never wavered. The vision of a better future fueled her efforts. She often imagined the day when Miguel could interact with devices designed to suit his specific needs, devices she helped create. That thought brought her comfort during the toughest moments. Keanu remained a steady presence. He checked in quietly, offering encouragement without intrusion. He arranged for tutors when Rosa struggled and coordinated flexible hours with the studio management. His approach was rooted in respect, never pity. Miguel thrived in his consultant role. The engineers adapted their prototypes based on his reactions and Rosa's feedback. Together, they created a feedback loop that ensured the technology was practical and empathetic. Miguel's smiles and small triumphs encouraged the entire team. Rosa's journey became a quiet inspiration within the studio. Colleagues who once saw her only as a janitor now recognized her as a valued contributor to the mission. Her story reminded everyone of the power of opportunity and the human spirit. Outside the studio, life's challenges persisted. Rosa dealt with medical appointments, insurance paperwork, and the ongoing uncertainties of Miguel's health. There were days when the stress felt unbearable, but she faced them with the same quiet strength that had carried her this far. Keanu's promise of full medical coverage was more than a practical solution. It was a symbol of trust and belief in Rosa's potential. She felt seen in a way she never had before. The burden of invisibility was lifting, replaced by a sense of partnership. Miguel's presence in meetings became a symbol of hope. The team arranged for accessible seating and made accommodations that showed genuine care. Rosa appreciated how they went beyond compliance, aiming for inclusivity at every level. Rosa's own transformation was unfolding. She began to see herself not just as a caretaker, but as a creator and innovator. Her confidence grew as she mastered new skills and contributed meaningful insights. Keanu's humility and thoughtful leadership remained at the heart of this change. He avoided grand gestures, focusing instead on empowering Rosa and Miguel with dignity. His actions spoke louder than words. Together they forged a new path, one built on empathy, opportunity, and shared purpose. This was not just a story of overcoming adversity, but of creating a future where challenges were met with compassion and innovation. The journey was far from over, but Rosa felt ready. With Miguel by her side and Keanu's support, she embraced the uncertain road ahead with hope and courage. Rosa's life was shifting in ways she had never imagined. From her early days quietly cleaning the studio to now working alongside engineers, the transformation was both profound and humbling. She had grown not only in skill, but in confidence. Each day brought new lessons, new challenges, and new opportunities to innovate. Keanu made it a point to visit whenever he could, though always discreetly. He didn't want to draw attention or make Rosa feel like a charity case. Instead, his visits were gentle reminders that someone believed in her potential. Sometimes he would arrive early in the morning or late in the afternoon, just enough time to say a few words of encouragement and listen to her progress. Their relationship was built on mutual respect. Rosa admired Keanu's humility and genuine interest in the work they were doing. Keanu admired Rosa's resilience and dedication. They rarely spoke about personal matters. Instead, their conversations focused on the projects, the technology, and the small victories that marked her journey. Rosa's work on assistive devices grew steadily. She contributed ideas drawn from her lived experience as a mother caring for Miguel, as well as from what she learned in her engineering courses. Her unique perspective made the devices more practical and user-friendly. Engineers on the team valued her input deeply. Miguel was more than just a son. He had become an essential part of this growing community. His reactions to prototypes helped shape design decisions. Rosa watched with pride as her son's presence influenced the direction of their work. It was a powerful reminder of why they were all committed to this mission. The studio, once a place where Rosa had merely survived, had become a space of creativity and hope. Colleagues who had barely acknowledged her before now treated her as a respected innovator. The boundaries between roles blurred as everyone rallied around the goal of creating technology that could change lives. Keanu's quiet support remained a constant. He never overshadowed Rosa's achievements, but celebrated them with sincere warmth. When a prototype finally passed its testing phase, or when Rosa aced a difficult exam, Keanu was there to offer congratulations. These moments, small to outsiders, were monumental to Rosa. The work was far from easy. Rosa balanced her demanding schedule with determination, often studying late into the night after caring for Miguel and completing her janitorial duties. Fatigue was a frequent companion, but so was the drive to keep moving forward. Her classmates became friends and collaborators. They marveled at her ability to connect theory with practical needs. Rosa's story inspired them, and she inspired them in return. Together, they shared ideas, helped each other through tough coursework, and envisioned a future shaped by empathy and innovation. Keanu watched from the sidelines, mindful of giving Rosa space to grow. His role was not to lead but to support, quietly. He believed that true empowerment came from respect and opportunity, not charity or grand gestures. As Rosa's skills developed, she began taking on more responsibility within the assistive technology team. She led brainstorming sessions and helped coordinate testing schedules. Her voice carried weight, reflecting the trust she had earned. Miguel's progress continued as well. With proper medical care and the technology being developed, his quality of life improved. Rosa saw smiles where there had been frustration. She saw hope where there had been uncertainty. Their journey was becoming a shared story of growth, Rosa, Miguel, and Keanu each evolving in their own way. The bonds they formed were quiet but strong, grounded in a shared purpose that transcended words. The studio itself seemed to change along with them. New spaces were designated for innovation labs, and the team expanded to include experts in engineering, therapy, and user experience. Rosa was at the heart of this ecosystem, her experiences shaping the culture as much as the technology. Keanu's visits became more frequent during project milestones. He attended presentations and quietly observed prototypes in action. His presence was reassuring without being imposing. Rosa appreciated the balance he struck, always supportive, never overbearing. Outside work, Rosa's life grew steadier. The promise of a better future for Miguel and herself no longer seemed distant. She dreamed openly about what they could achieve, no longer held back by fear or doubt. The community around them recognized the significance of this transformation. What began as an act of kindness had blossomed into a movement for change. Rosa's story was a beacon, illustrating how compassion and opportunity could intersect to create real impact. Keanu's humility remained central to everything. He never sought recognition or spotlight. Instead, he focused on lifting others, quietly changing lives through thoughtful leadership. His belief in Rosa and Miguel's potential was unwavering. Together, they continued to grow, each step forward a testament to resilience, collaboration, and hope. This was not just a story about technology or hardship. It was a story about people, about the strength found in connection, and the possibilities that arise when someone dares to believe. Rosa's journey from janitor to innovator had inspired everyone around her. Now, she and Miguel were deeply involved in creating assistive devices that were not only functional but affordable and accessible. The studio lab, once just a place for film sets and lights, had transformed into a hub of creativity and hope. Ideas flowed freely, and every member of the team, regardless of background, felt empowered to contribute. Miguel's insights were invaluable. Though young and facing his own challenges, he offered a perspective that engineers often missed. His reactions to prototypes helped refine designs, ensuring the devices were truly user-friendly. Rosa listened carefully to her son's feedback, proud of how he was becoming part of something bigger. The team worked long hours, driven by purpose. Each new model they developed brought them closer to their goal, technology that could improve the lives of countless people who faced barriers every day. They experimented with materials, tested functionality, and considered cost at every stage. Keanu supported the project quietly but steadfastly. He arranged resources, connected the team with experts, and mentored Rosa and others without overshadowing them. His belief in inclusion was clear. Success wasn't just about innovation, but about lifting up the whole community. The atmosphere in the lab was electric. Conversations buzzed with ideas, laughter, and shared determination. People who once felt invisible now had a voice. The work wasn't easy, but the rewards were real. Every small breakthrough was a victory for Rosa, Miguel, and the team. As the news of their work spread, the ripple effects grew stronger. Rosa found herself invited to community gatherings and technology forums, sharing her journey from janitor to innovator. At these events, she spoke not just about assistive devices, but about dignity, resilience, and the power of opportunity. Miguel became a symbol of hope and determination. Despite his physical challenges, he engaged audiences with an infectious enthusiasm that touched hearts. His insights into usability inspired designers to rethink their assumptions. People listened when he spoke, understanding that real innovation comes from lived experience. Keanu quietly supported these efforts. He made introductions to medical experts, philanthropists, and engineers who could help accelerate the project. His humility was evident. He never sought attention for his role, instead focusing on lifting up Rosa and Miguel as the true heroes. The team grew, attracting passionate individuals from diverse backgrounds: engineers, designers, social workers, and advocates. This diversity enriched their approach, sparking creativity and empathy in equal measure. Rosa's leadership created a nurturing environment where ideas flourished and everyone felt empowered. Cost remained a central concern. They worked tirelessly to source affordable materials and optimize production techniques. Trials were held in real homes and clinics to ensure the devices met real needs. Feedback loops were constant, with Rosa and Miguel at the heart of every decision. The work was challenging, filled with late nights and setbacks, but every success, no matter how small, strengthened their resolve. They celebrated milestones quietly but meaningfully, knowing their mission extended far beyond the studio's walls. The project became a beacon of what inclusion could achieve when combined with innovation. Rosa and Miguel's story inspired others facing adversity, proving that, with support and opportunity, barriers could be overcome. Beyond the technical breakthroughs, the true power of their work was in the lives they touched. Families who had once felt isolated now found renewed hope and connection through the affordable assistive devices Rosa and Miguel helped create. Children who struggled to communicate or move independently began to engage more freely with their surroundings and loved ones. These devices became bridges, opening doors to education, friendship, and dignity in ways previously unimaginable. Rosa often received messages from grateful parents and caregivers. Each heartfelt note was a reminder of why she had persevered through exhaustion, self-doubt, and uncertainty. She kept a small collection of these letters in a box on her desk. On difficult days, reading them recharged her spirit and renewed her commitment. Miguel's laughter often echoed through the studio halls, a living testament to the progress and possibility they were helping to build together. Keanu's mentorship remained quiet but unwavering. He encouraged the team to balance ambition with patience and empathy. He reminded them that the devices they created were not just mechanical inventions, but lifelines, carrying the weight of real human hopes and struggles. His belief in servant leadership deepened the project's foundation, making compassion its true guiding force. He quietly celebrated each small victory and stood beside Rosa and Miguel without fanfare. The once empty studio lab had transformed into a vibrant sanctuary of innovation, community, and purpose. What had started as a secret hope for Rosa and Miguel had blossomed into a shared mission embraced by a growing network of passionate creators, engineers, and advocates. Their story became a beacon of what could happen when inclusion and respect fueled creativity and progress. Together, Rosa, Miguel, and the team were not only designing assistive technology, they were shaping a movement, a future where technology served all people, regardless of circumstance or ability. Though challenges remained, their path forward was clear and inspired, a road paved with determination, empathy, and quiet but unbreakable strength. Their work also began to attract attention beyond the studio. Conferences, charities, and community organizations reached out, eager to learn from their approach and replicate it in other places. Rosa found herself speaking at events, sharing her journey from janitor to innovator, inspiring others to believe in the power of resilience and dignity. Miguel, with his infectious curiosity, became a symbol of hope, reminding everyone that limitations could be met with creativity and love. Keanu stayed humble, letting Rosa and Miguel's voices shine. He used his influence behind the scenes to secure resources and support, but always emphasized the importance of grassroots empowerment. He believed true change came from honoring lived experience and giving people the tools to build their own futures. As the months passed, the studio lab buzzed with new ideas and fresh faces, each person drawn by the vision Rosa, Miguel, and Keanu embodied. It was no longer just a place of work. It was a community where innovation was rooted in kindness and every voice mattered. In this new chapter, they were all growing together, learning, adapting, and dreaming bigger than ever before. Their journey was far from over, but the foundation was strong. From quiet beginnings to a chorus of hope, they were proving that real progress starts with inclusion, respect, and unwavering compassion. Despite the progress Rosa had made, a shadow of doubt often crept into her thoughts. Late at night, when the world was quiet and Miguel was asleep, she wrestled with the harsh voices of skepticism that society had whispered for years. Could she truly belong in a world of engineers and innovators? Was it really possible for someone with her background, someone who had spent years as a janitor and a single mother struggling to survive, to break through the barriers of expectation and prejudice? These questions echoed inside her, challenging her resolve. There were moments when the weight of those doubts felt suffocating. She feared that, no matter how hard she worked, the world might never fully accept her or her dreams. Her past life seemed to tug at her like an anchor, threatening to pull her back into the shadows where she had once lived. Miguel, too, was navigating his own difficult terrain. As he grew older, he became more aware of the complexities of his identity, both as a child with disabilities and as someone who was learning to hope beyond limitations. Some days, Miguel struggled to balance the desire to be like other kids with the reality of his unique challenges. At school, he sometimes felt isolated, misunderstood by peers who couldn't see past his wheelchair or his cautious movement. But Miguel was also learning to embrace his strengths, the sharpness of his mind, his kindness, and his resilience. His mother's unwavering belief in him was his anchor, even as he tried to understand where he fit in a world that was often unkind to those who were different. Keanu noticed these moments of struggle. He saw Rosa's quiet battles with self-doubt, and he sensed Miguel's cautious journey toward self-acceptance. Rather than trying to offer grand solutions, he focused on listening deeply. He reminded them gently that progress was never a straight path, and that every challenge was a part of a larger story, one of courage, persistence, and humanity. His humility was a balm to Rosa and Miguel. Keanu spoke not as a savior, but as a fellow traveler, someone who understood the fragility and strength intertwined in the human experience. He encouraged them to center the stories behind their work, to remember that the technology they created was not an end in itself, but a means to uplift real people. This focus on the human element grounded their efforts. It helped Rosa see her doubts not as failures, but as signs of growth, moments that demanded compassion for herself. Miguel, too, found new strength in knowing that his hopes were valid, and that his identity was something to celebrate, not hide. Through quiet conversations and shared moments of reflection, Keanu, Rosa, and Miguel built a foundation of trust and resilience. They learned to face doubts not with fear, but with curiosity and openness, knowing that every step forward, no matter how uncertain, was a step toward a more inclusive and compassionate future. Rosa's days were filled with moments that tested her resolve. At the studio, she encountered subtle reminders of the skepticism that lingered around her. Some colleagues regarded her with polite distance, unsure of how to respond to the janitor-turned-Janarine student. It wasn't outright hostility, but a quiet disbelief, a hesitation to accept that someone from her background could truly belong in their world. She felt the weight of those looks and unspoken judgments, and sometimes it made her question whether her dream was realistic. The fear of failure loomed large, threatening to unravel the progress she had made. At night, when exhaustion settled into her bones, those doubts whispered louder, filling her mind with uncertainty. Miguel watched his mother silently, sensing the pressure she carried. He wanted to ease her burden, to tell her that she was enough, that her courage was inspiring. But like many children, he sometimes struggled to find the right words. Instead, he focused on his own journey, learning to balance his desires with his reality. At school, Miguel faced challenges that went beyond physical barriers. Some teachers didn't understand his needs, and a few classmates whispered behind his back. Yet he refused to let those moments define him. With Rosa's encouragement and Keanu's quiet support, he began to find his voice, speaking up for himself in small but powerful ways. Keanu continued to be a steady presence in their lives, always mindful of the delicate balance between helping and respecting autonomy. He organized private meetings with Rosa to discuss her progress, listening intently to her hopes and fears. His approach was gentle but determined. He believed in her potential and wanted her to see it too. One afternoon, after a particularly challenging day, Rosa confided in Keanu. She spoke of the loneliness she felt, the isolation from people who couldn't understand her world. She admitted that sometimes, despite her determination, she feared she would never escape the cycle of struggle. Keanu listened without interruption, his eyes filled with empathy. When she finished, he shared a story from his own life, a moment when he had felt lost and uncertain about the future. He didn't offer easy answers, but he reminded her that even the strongest people have moments of doubt. What mattered was the choice to keep moving forward, to trust in the slow, sometimes messy process of growth. This honesty deepened their connection. Rosa realized she wasn't alone in her feelings, and that strength came from embracing vulnerability as much as resilience. Miguel, too, found hope in watching his mother's courage, understanding that doubts were part of a larger journey. Together, they faced the skepticism of others not as a barrier, but as a challenge, to be met with grace and determination. Their work on assistive technology became more than a project. It was a testament to their belief in a world where everyone could belong. Keanu's guidance never overshadowed their voices. He encouraged Rosa to lead conversations, to share her story when she was ready. He arranged opportunities for Miguel to speak at community events, helping him discover the power of his own narrative. Slowly, the studio community began to see them differently. Colleagues who had once been distant grew curious and then supportive. Rosa's expertise and insight brought fresh perspectives that enriched their projects. Miguel's spirit and intelligence inspired those around him. The journey was far from easy, but each step forward was a victory against doubt and exclusion. Rosa's doubts transformed from barriers into fuel for growth. Miguel's balance between identity and hope became a beacon for others facing similar struggles. In this shared journey, Keanu, Rosa, and Miguel exemplified the power of humility, empathy, and perseverance. Their story was a quiet revolution, one that challenged assumptions and invited a deeper understanding of what it means to be truly inclusive. The challenges remained, but Rosa faced them with growing strength. When doubts and skepticism arose, She responded with quiet confidence and persistence. Her work spoke for itself, proving her skills and dedication. Miguel, too, embraced his identity and became a passionate advocate, offering invaluable insight into their projects. Keanu watched their progress with pride, knowing that real change came from respect and understanding. He stayed by their side, supporting them humbly and reminding them that behind every invention was a human story worth honoring. There were still moments of uncertainty. Rosa worried if her efforts would make a difference, and Miguel struggled to fit in and balance his hopes with his reality. But Keanu encouraged open conversations and honesty, teaching them that doubts were natural and part of growth. Together, they expanded their work, creating assistive devices shaped by empathy and lived experience. The studio lab grew into a community of hope, where inclusion and innovation went hand in hand. Others joined, inspired by Rosa and Miguel's journey and Keanu's steady leadership. Facing doubt didn't break them, it made them stronger. Rosa found her voice, Miguel embraced his future, and Keanu remained a quiet pillar of support. Their story showed that with courage and compassion, even the toughest challenges can lead to real change. The work that Rosa and Miguel had begun in that quiet studio lab was starting to reach far beyond its walls. What began as a modest project of assistive devices had blossomed into a movement of hope and inclusion. Families around the world found new possibilities. Children who once faced barriers now experienced newfound independence and joy. Every device crafted with care, every design tested with patience, was changing lives in ways no one had fully imagined. Keanu watched these developments quietly, never seeking the spotlight or praise. For him, the true reward was seeing the genuine smiles on faces touched by the innovations. He understood deeply that a small act of kindness, a single choice to help, could create ripples that expanded outward endlessly. It was a lesson in humility and power. How compassion could build bridges where there once were walls. Messages began arriving from families who had received the assistive devices. Stories poured in about children learning to speak more clearly, navigating their environments with greater ease, or simply feeling more confident and included. Rosa's and Miguel's names became known not for fame, but for the quiet revolution they were sparking. The devices were not just technology. They were lifelines woven with love and lived experience. The studio, once just a place of filming and lights, transformed into a hub of creativity and care. More people joined the cause: engineers, doctors, volunteers, all drawn by the sincerity and impact of the work. It became clear this was more than a project. It was a community dedicated to lifting others up. Keanu's support remained steadfast, yet unobtrusive, letting Rosa and Miguel lead with their courage and vision. Every innovation sparked new ideas. The ripple effect grew stronger with each success story shared, spreading empathy and understanding to corners of the world where such hope had been scarce. For Keanu, the greatest satisfaction came not from the achievements themselves, but from the human connections forged along the way. As the ripple effect spread, the impact of Rosa and Miguel's work became more visible in unexpected places. Schools began adapting the assistive devices to fit the needs of their students. Community centers held workshops inspired by the technology, inviting families to learn, share, and support one another. Even local governments took notice, exploring ways to make accessibility a priority in public spaces. Rosa found herself invited to speak at events, not as a janitor, but as an innovator and advocate. Though she remained humble, the pride in her eyes was unmistakable. Miguel, too, began to see himself not just as a boy with disabilities, but as a vital contributor to something bigger than himself. His insights and experiences helped shape the designs, making the technology more effective and inclusive. Keanu continued to quietly mentor and support from behind the scenes. He understood the importance of letting Rosa and Miguel own their story and achievements. His presence was steady, offering resources and guidance without overshadowing their journey. Through this approach, trust deepened and their partnership grew stronger. The news of their work reached media outlets, but the narrative focused less on celebrity involvement and more on the genuine human stories behind the innovation. Families shared their struggles and triumphs, making the movement relatable and inspiring to viewers worldwide. The focus on empathy over fame resonated deeply. The studio's lab became a symbol, a place where compassion met creativity, where barriers were dismantled with each new design. This environment nurtured not only technology but also community, hope, and belonging. It was a testament to what can happen when people come together to uplift one another with respect and dignity. The momentum only grew stronger as more families reached out, sharing heartfelt stories of how Rosa and Miguel's innovations transformed their daily lives. Parents described their children gaining newfound independence and confidence thanks to the affordable assistive devices designed with real needs in mind. For many families who once felt isolated, these tools became bridges to greater participation in school and community life. Educators reported improvements in classroom engagement, noting how students who had previously struggled were now thriving. Beyond the tangible devices, Rosa's journey inspired a wave of hope among those facing similar struggles. Her story resonated deeply, showing that with opportunity, support, and relentless determination, real change was possible. Miguel's unique role as a young consultant symbolized the importance of including those with disabilities as active participants in crafting solutions. His voice empowered children everywhere to see themselves as vital contributors to their own futures. Keanu's quiet presence remained a steady source of encouragement behind the scenes. He understood that true leadership is rarely about grand gestures or public accolades. Instead, it's about listening, enabling others, and stepping back to let their light shine. His humility and compassion shaped the culture of the team and the project, reminding everyone that lasting change grows from empathy and shared humanity. The ripple effect extended far beyond the technology itself. It sparked crucial conversations about inclusion, accessibility, and kindness across communities. People began to reevaluate outdated views on ability and difference, fostering a culture that celebrated diverse contributions and embraced empathy as a foundational value. Organizations and individuals started adopting more inclusive practices, inspired by the tangible successes emerging from Rosa and Miguel's work. In this unfolding story of resilience, innovation, and hope, the small warm light Rosa once tended in the quiet studio break room grew to illuminate the lives of countless families across the country. It stood as a powerful reminder that sometimes the most profound impact begins with a single act of kindness and the courage to believe in a better tomorrow. Keanu's gentle intervention had set in motion a movement that was changing lives, creating community, and offering a brighter future for children like Miguel everywhere. Keanu sat quietly in the softly lit studio, his eyes reflecting a deep calm and an unspoken gratitude. The journey he and Rosa had taken together was unlike any he had experienced before. It had changed him in ways that no movie role or public appearance ever could. Sitting beside him, Rosa's gentle smile carried the weight of all she had endured, the struggles, the late nights, the relentless hope. Together they faced the camera, ready to share a message that reached far beyond the story of one family. Keanu's voice was steady, warm, inviting. What we've learned through this journey is something simple but powerful. Compassion isn't just a feeling, it's an action. It's about showing up even when no one is watching. It's about recognizing the hidden stories behind every person we pass by. His words carried a quiet urgency, a call to awareness that stirred something inside every listener. Too often, the struggles people face go unseen, unheard. But when we take the time to notice, to listen, to act, we create a ripple effect, one small kindness spreading into a wave of change. Rosa nodded, her eyes shining with heartfelt conviction. For years I thought my life was invisible, As a janitor, as a single mother, I believed no one would see beyond the surface. But through this experience, I realized that every story matters. Every person has value and potential waiting to be unlocked. When someone believes in you, when they stand beside you, it changes everything. Her voice softened. And it's not about charity. It's about respect, dignity, and partnership. We all have something to offer, and sometimes we just need a little support to discover it. Keanu leaned forward slightly, emphasizing the importance of presence. Showing up is more than just physical. It means being present with empathy, with an open heart. It means recognizing that behind every face is a story, sometimes full of pain, sometimes full of hope, often both. When we engage with that story, we honor our shared humanity. Rosa's gaze grew more thoughtful as she added, "We invite you to look around, at your neighbors, co-workers, even strangers on the street. Notice the struggles that might be hidden beneath smiles or silence. And ask yourself, how can I be part of the solution? How can I show up for someone this week?" There was a gentle strength in her words, a genuine invitation that felt personal and universal at once. Keanu's voice softened, wrapping the moment in hopeful warmth. We don't have to do everything. Sometimes, the smallest gestures, a listening ear, a kind word, a moment of patience, can shift the course of someone's day or even their life. Compassion is contagious, and it starts with each of us. The studio fell into a peaceful quiet, the kind that invites reflection. The camera held their faces, not as distant celebrities, but as fellow travelers, on a journey toward kindness and connection. The story they shared was not just theirs. It belonged to anyone willing to see and act. Keanu closed this part with a question that lingered in the air, simple yet profound. Who will you show up for this week? The words felt like an open door, an encouragement to step forward into a world where empathy leads the way. The room seemed to breathe with the weight of that question. Rosa's eyes reflected a quiet hope as she spoke again, her voice carrying the gentle strength built from years of perseverance. When I first started working at the studio, I was just trying to survive. Every day was about keeping Miguel safe, finding food, and holding on to hope that things might get better. I never imagined my story would inspire others, or that my struggles could lead to something meaningful beyond my immediate world. She paused, then continued, "But through this journey, I learned that vulnerability is not weakness. It's a bridge that connects us. By sharing our truths, by acknowledging our fears and doubts, we invite others to walk alongside us. It's how communities are built, through trust and shared experience." Keanu nodded, adding, "That's why this story matters, not just for Rosa and Miguel, but for all of us. Because hidden struggles exist everywhere, and when we shine a light on them, we empower those who've been overlooked. We create spaces where innovation isn't just about technology or money, but about humanity and inclusion." He reflected on his own life, humbled by the lessons he'd learned. As someone who's often been in the spotlight, it's easy to forget that fame doesn't shield us from life's challenges. What really matters is how we choose to respond, to use whatever resources and opportunities we have to make a difference. Rosa smiled softly. "I want everyone watching to know that help can come in unexpected ways. Sometimes it's a quiet presence rather than a loud gesture. Sometimes it's a new chance rather than a handout. And sometimes it's about believing in someone's potential when they can't believe in themselves." Keanu looked directly into the camera, his voice steady and sincere. We all have the power to be that presence. It doesn't require grand actions, just genuine care and willingness to listen. When we show up for others, we also show up for ourselves, discovering the deep joy that comes from connection. Rosa's tone grew tender. "Miguel has taught me so much about resilience and hope. Watching him grow, learning to navigate his own path, reminds me every day why kindness matters. It's not just about fixing problems, but about nurturing dreams, Keanu added. And as you watch this story, ask yourself, what small act of kindness can I offer today? Who in my life needs to know they're seen, heard, and valued? Compassion is not limited by circumstance. It's a choice we can make every moment. The atmosphere shifted toward hopeful possibility. Rosa and Keanu's shared reflections became a quiet call to action, not demanding, but inviting. Together, Rosa said, we can create a world where no one has to hide, where everyone's story is honored, and where every child, like Miguel, can dream freely. Keanu's closing words carried the warmth of that vision. This journey is far from over, but it starts with one simple question, one simple choice. Who will you show up for this week? Their faces lingered on screen, steady and earnest, as the moment settled deeply into the hearts of viewers. The message was clear, powerful, and profoundly human. As the camera held its gentle focus, Keanu took a moment to share a quiet reflection on what this journey had meant for him personally. This experience has reminded me that true success isn't measured by awards or box office numbers. It's about the lives we touch and the change we help create, often in ways that go unseen. Rosa and Miguel's courage and spirit have been a profound lesson in humility and hope. Rosa's eyes shone with gratitude and determination. Every day, I face challenges that many might never understand, but knowing that people care, that there are those willing to listen and stand alongside me and Miguel, gives me strength. It pushes me to keep learning, to keep believing that a better future is possible, not just for us, but for many others. Keanu nodded. We often overlook the quiet heroes among us, the parents, the caregivers, the individuals working tirelessly behind the scenes. Their stories are woven into the fabric of our communities. By honoring these stories, we acknowledge the real foundation of hope and progress. He paused, then spoke directly to the audience once more. Your presence matters. Your kindness matters. And the simple choice to show up, to offer support without judgment, can ripple far beyond what you imagine. Rosa added softly, when we open our eyes and hearts to the struggles around us, we begin to see the potential for transformation, not just for those who need help, but for ourselves. Compassion changes us. It deepens our understanding of what it means to be human. Keanu smiled gently. So today, I invite you to take that step. Look around, reach out, listen. Let's build a world where every person feels valued and empowered. The final words lingered in the air, a heartfelt invitation echoing in the minds of all watching. Who will you show up for this week? The screen faded slowly to black, leaving a quiet space for reflection and a seed of hope to take root.